in regards to making something, and then when the factories come over, that means that the revenue, the people who have the factories, they get more of the revenue than the ones that are making the stuff. You know what I'm saying? At one time, the person that was making it, they was receiving the reaping their rewards or their benefits. Then the factories come over, and then they start reaping the benefit. And then what happens is that then the factories start out resourcing themselves. Then the factory shut down and move somewhere else. You know what I'm saying? So if the factories move somewhere else, then what you think the people gonna do? They're gonna try to migrate somewhere else too because they want that dollar. But that's the challenge of when it comes to the deindustrialization of America and how there's like jobs are going continue. The people who have the money to create the factories and the investment, that they take their jobs overseas, and that's why you talk about a disinvestment. It's a disinvestment not in your own, but it's you're investing or in somewhere outside of your country, and that's the same way to bring it home. When people don't invest even in their own communities, and then you look at these stores in the communities, whereas that they take that dollar and they take that dollar out of town, as Malcolm would say, but don't reinvest back in the community. Because I remember one time I challenged a store and I tried to petition it because they wasn't investing in the community. So I just left it be, because I didn't really get any backing or any support. So I just let it be. So that's why Elijah Muhammad says that that wherever they use the Bible verse, wherever the carcass is, the eagles will gather. That means that black people are like dead corpse. Everybody's feeding off us, and that's why Dr. King says the ghetto is like a domestic colony, always being depleted but never replenished. So this is the same thing that's going on now. If the president now of this country is he trying to bring jobs back in as an investment? Because we know that Warren Buffett, he's investing in things in China. You know what I'm saying? He's an investor. He's a businessman. And this is the matter this associated with factories, is that they put more interest on the factories. They invest in the factories, but won't invest in the stability of the people. So therefore, the people who don't have the means to support themselves, of course they're gonna start going into. They may start venturing into drugs and alcohol or what have you, and then they start get depressed. Then they start, maybe started wanting to commit what they call suicide. Because the
hold tight, but that's exactly what me. This is, I'm almost. This is really, this is scaring me, man. Because that's what me and the girl were talking about. She was saying how that stuff started under Nixon when he made the China deal, and I said, well, yeah, that's true. It brought him into the trade and everything, but then NAFTA outsourced all middle-class jobs. I was telling her here in Baltimore, and this was just the day, man. This is why this deja vu, man. When I be talking to you, almost every time I'm talking to you, I had conversations like about the same subject matter. And I was saying how China used to be so poor in poverty that they didn't really have a middle class. It was the ruling class, and then everybody else was peasants. But because we outsourced everything to China, even them factories where they're not paying them much, they were able to build a middle class, and we lost the middle class because I was telling her earlier in the day how we had steel plants here, car plants here, where you didn't even really have to go to college or anything to make a living wage. You could have worked at the steel plant. We had Bethany Hand Steel, we had U.S. Steel up in Pittsburgh, Ohio Steel in Ohio, and all of these kind of factory kind of jobs were allowing people to have a decent living and with dignity with their jobs because they had unions. They could take that money, which was a livable wage, and then invest in the American dream, buy homes, buy cars. My old man got a car every 4 years, man, because not every 4 years, but, he bought one in 64, 69, 73, almost like right after they paid for it, because that's how America was back then. But now, the 1%, wanted more, didn't want to pay union wages. They wanted to take their businesses over to Mexico and China, where they can pay slave wages, get more profit, and pollute the land. Just like I also was highlighting Martin Luther King's album, What's Going On, about poison the ecology and all of this, man. It's yesterday's. It ain't nothing changed since yesterday. Since he sung that song, if you was to put it on right now, it would have the same relevance 50 years later. You know, and so it's just interesting that the subject matter that we hit on was the same subject matter. And I don't know if you're recording it, man, but you would do this subject matter justice if you was to hold on and get her and just a couple other people involved in that, because she brings a little wisdom to it that's from a female standpoint. Because she was also talking about how the Chinese people have covered the hair market, man. And I don't know if she's just talking about Asians, because I don't know if you can specifically say it that the Chinese market. But they have covered the industrial, the manufacturing market. Everything nowadays damn near. And we were talking about how, and this is a point, man, where when we do this again, and you had that iPod to get on, because I don't know if you know this, but China makes all our antibiotics. Almost 85% of the ingredients are made in China for antibiotics. Man, how can you kill a people? Poison their antibiotics. And of course we all know that there was a racket in China to make the knockoff Louis Vuitton bags and Michael Kors bags. Now what happens when they start making the knockoff Viagra? And we don't know what's in it. The knockoff, they send fentanyl over here. And who was talking about that? Donald Trump. We're talking about what the threat is to China. And what do the misleaders of this country talk about? They still talking about Russia, as Russia being the main enemy. Now, China is over here sending fentanyl to this country that's killing people. My buddy, man, I can't say for sure that this was what took him out, man, but almost every weekend, he would go get them street-level Viagras, buy them off the street from people, and boom, he had a heart attack, man. And of course, I'm not the autopsy man, but I would tell him, man, I said, man, why don't you just get that shit from your doctor, man? You buying that shit down Lexington Market, you don't know what you're getting. I mean, it could be a knockoff too. It don't necessarily have to be what you think it is. I mean, just like if you go get years ago, people would buy reefer, it would be oregano. Years ago, people would buy crack, and it would be soap, man. You don't know what you're getting, man. And then one Saturday morning, man, he didn't show up for the job, and they went to his house, and he was gone that night, you know. Yeah, of course, I can't really make the connection to the two. Well, everybody knows that them things is bad on your heart anyway. And if you getting one, as he used to, rest his soul, he used to say, I'm gonna get that pussy a black eye tonight, man. I got my blues. I mean, it was all fun and jokes when he was living. You know, I mean, as long as he woke up, I mean, you gave it the black eye, well, good for you. But then, when he didn't wake up that next morning, man, I got to thinking about that. And Trump has been saying, man, that they poisoning us. They sending these drugs over here, this fentanyl over here, and you had this opiate crisis, and we ain't connecting the dots, man.
Well, look at it this way, though. Look at it this way, and I'm not, of course, I'm no politician, because, Trump would say, and I very rarely use anyone's name, those politicians' name. But, the president would say there's a problem that he has inherited. Remember, you could tell once again, always preference, you could tell the psychology of one mentality by what he or she produced, or the results of what he or she produced, or what has been produced by previous generations. So this is something that he has inherited. So I remember I was dealing with the drugs. I was talking with because it's part of the economy. It's part of the American economy. It's bigger than him. I was talking to a gentleman who's from another country, I think Colombia, and I say, man, what's up with? I said, what's happening with these drugs? And he would say that, hey man, if it wouldn't be so much in demand over here, we would never send it over here. So I'm just talking about outside influence. We're talking about outside influence. We're talking about the influence. We're talking about the culture. And if there is a problem, you have to deal with customs. If you want to deal, you got to go to customs because it is allowed over here. If you want to deal with customs, you got to go with the Central Intelligence Agency. You got to deal with them. So you got to go through all these channels. And even if you're dealing with health, you got to deal with the World Health Organization, who supports them, And when you deal with, you got to go to someone, get closer to the root cause and see follow the money and see who's supporting them, or who's supporting this, and even who's supporting this behavior or this ideology and the influence of the philosophy that is perpetuating and promoting this type of behavior, where the gentleman feeding the appetite, where the gentleman says that, well, all he got now is he want to give this thing a black eye. That's an appetite that's been fed by the culture and the customs of the society in which we live. So one must try to have some type of restraint, because I realize that when one becomes emotionally weak, it leads to death and destruction. So
well, I totally agree with everything you just said, but there's a little, I guess you might want to say, an amendment to that, in that they create a climate. Yeah, we have an appetite, and this is, man, so important, because if you look at my thread I had with a black Surgeon General, that's an interesting thread, man. You should read the comments, because it goes backwards and forwards. You got a lot of people saying that the brother is a brother Surgeon General, and this is to show you Trump derangement syndrome. The brother is trying to speak in terms of my family. I mean, I'm one of y'all. Even though you want to call me a coon, I got family members like Ray Ray. You know what I'm saying? So he's trying to tell black people in a conference. I mean, in a what do you want to call it? Ebonics kind of way, that we're gonna have to do better. We're gonna have to leave some of that fried chicken alone. We're gonna have to leave some of these drugs and alcohol alone, because those vices make the virus more prevalent in our community. You had a group of people that was on top of what he was saying, but then you had these people that anything Trump do is bad. So because it was a black dude that came out and said it, you had a group of people that would say, oh, look at him, he blaming the victim. Well, I don't give a shit what Billy Bob do. If Billy Bob wanna eat all the fried chicken in the world and the virus come to him, that's on him. But, when you got people in your community that is running out and getting a Popeye's chicken sandwich when they already overweight, they already got diabetes, and they already got high blood pressure, then it only makes sense that the virus is going to attack these kinds of people and be lethal.
You on it, because what happens is that like I said, what we have, what this goes back to me once again, the psychology of one's mentality is not only what we produce, but what the previous generation has produced. That means that people have inherited that type of thinking. I mean, thinking, which means people take the victim position. The victim of being the victim position. And so therefore, when they come at this particular individual who's trying to connect, because remember, for me, I realize it makes no difference where the seed comes from, long as the ground is fertile. And I also know this too, is that when you're sick, you'll take something to help you through your sickness, and it may be bitter, but it helps. I think that there is a story in this regards. And this is the sophistication. When I say the sophistication, I mean the wickedness of how the master magician, or the conjecturer behind the scene, called the shot, is that they can make us become highly emotional and highly logical at the same time. So therefore, it puts us at odds with one another. There was a story about a guy that was running for mayor. I think it was Stokes. I think he was running against a guy named Taft in Cleveland. And
I remember that.
It was suggested that Stokes shouldn't do the interview. I mean, shouldn't do a town hall meeting that is fully loaded with white people, right? And Stokes went on and against his advisors, he did it anyway. And what Stokes did was he told him, "I'm from Cleveland. This man is not from Cleveland. Why would you vote for him? And he's not even from Cleveland because he don't have." I'm paraphrasing. Don't even have the spirit of Cleveland interest at heart. I'm just just paraphrasing. And the white people got so emotional, but he told the truth though. You know what I'm saying? And that's the challenge. That's why I said the system makes us highly logical and highly emotional. He told the truth, and that's the challenge. So some people are telling the truth and being logical about it, but people are being emotional in their response to the truth.
Man, if you don't believe it, this is fresh news. Sometimes when I talk to you, man, it's hard to. And I'll be telling you, man, I wish I could go back and grab this and show it to you. But this is kind of fresh news. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put your name to it so you might be able to. But there's some people in there, man, who, and all of them I have, at least Facebook, some of them I have personal relationships with it, in which they kind of got the bigger picture, man. We go to the alcohol store to get the lotteries, and we in there 15 at a time, packed in a small place trying to get the lotteries. Yeah. Ain't no social distancing going on.
Silly. That's silly.
You know to get your rocker, man. Yeah. The white man ain't doing that. The white man be eating salads and jogging down at the inner harbor. Right. They do instruct us, and when all you see is liquor stores in your community, then when you see them enough, you're going to say, oh, well, let me drop in a liquor store, let me get a lottery ticket, let me get a pint of this to ease my self-medicate. Right. And all these dynamics are put in place like a chessboard, where if you drop in that liquor store, it's going to be 10, 15 people way over the limit, in line to get lottery, in line to get that. So who in that 15, nobody wearing a mask, who do you know really had a virus? You going in there, you got diabetes, you got hypertension, and then boom, 2 weeks later you died. And then like I said, these people were they were against the brother saying exactly what's true.
I know.
It was unbelievable, man.
No, I know. I had to laugh at that one.
Like that, man, because it's just it's beyond me, man. Because I love my people, man. I really do. And see some of the stupidity that they can't even connect the dots.
But you know the thing is though.
You had at least 3 or 4 so-called educated Orleans that they swear that they the smartest one in the room. I'm not talking about in terms of book knowledge, but they the smartest one, and they more conscious of black people, and they all for black people, and every chance they can get to go after Trump, they'll go after him. But they don't even see the bigger picture, man. The Surgeon General, he could be a token black. I don't know. He speaks well. He's a doctor, so he ain't the usual kind of black person that's growing up in the hood. He was trying to talk on our level and say we got to do better.
Accept responsibility. The thing is, you got to accept responsibility for your actions because I gave a presentation. I think tonight I did, and I always say, man, that when you talk about that which we are deprived of is a lack of accountability. And when there was a word called sin, that's what that means. You missed the mark because you don't want to be accountable. And then when you don't be accountable, you don't want to be responsible, and you don't want to deal with the consequences of your action. So the punishment meets the crime. That's why I said the soul is proportional, which means that the punishment is proportional to the crime that has been committed. So if people want to hang around in these stores, brothers and sisters want to hang around in the stores and don't take things serious, it is a hangover of what has been produced and what they have inherited from previous generations. And the generations don't have to be it could be your it doesn't necessarily have to be your mother and father. It could be other outside influences that came into play. That does not say that if you don't that they themselves are not being taken serious. So why should I take it serious? So therefore, we got to realize that this system in which we're under, of course, it is trying to kill us. But at the same time, we refuse to die. Now, it does not mean to a fact that when I mean die, means to be, meaning to come, mentally dead. But yet at the same time, we want to be productive as opposed to be unproductive, and that's the challenge. The means and the manner of way to put people in a position where they can be valued and to be in a position where that they can be productive and be a contributor to the society. And the best of ways to serve as a benefit. The best way to do that is to first change your attitude. You have to figure out a way to put them in an environment where their attitude changes. Now, how are ways you can do that? The best way to get one's attention sometimes, a prison can get one's attention. Some people become reformed when they're in there, and some people don't. They come out doing the same thing. Another way to do that solution is take them out the environment. They must be willing to leave the environment. But neither say if you become programmed and conditioned like a fish only grows as big as the tank in which it is in. So, well, if they are at a certain age and they become unreachable, then it goes back to what Frederick Douglass says about repairing people. He's talking about you have to deal with the young. You have to get to them. So that's why when I did a presentation with the youth, I said you got to think outside of where you live. The world is global. So the older they are, the more harder they are to reach. Unless they are in a environment, unless they are willing and able that they want to change. Because a person that doesn't see an issue with his or her behavior, they will never change.
Yeah, that's true. Or like you say, you won't have an issue. Yeah. Unless somebody personally kicks the bucket from the virus, and half these people, they can go in these stores and pick the virus up, and then if they take it home to grandma's going to be the one that leaves here. I just was surprised at the amount of resistance to the truth, man, that this brother, this Surgeon General was saying, man. This is nothing new, that we have food deserts in our neighborhood, that we eat oodles and noodles, that we eat too much fast food. Just a couple months ago, we was running out for a sodium and sugar-filled chicken sandwich when, like I said, man, my mother, man, she made that fried chicken. It had garlic in it. It had, all kinds. She used them cast iron frying pans. I mean, it was serious fried chicken. Where does it travel?
Food that is prepared by you and at home. So, the next step, too, another solution.
It had love in it, and it was balanced with, the next day we have a salmon or something like a salmon cake or something like that. So it wasn't like 3 days in a row.
No, balance.
To the Korean, man, getting fried food. And how these people could not, how could they attack the brother for trying to get, the whole thing of you attacking the messenger and not listening at the message.
Yeah, that's the problem.
It was beyond me, man. But I'm going to put your name there, man. And I know you kind of quiet on comment and things, but just if you read what a few people were saying, man, you would see just how sick we are as a people, man. And to the credit of quite a few, even people I have totally have had, agree to disagree on, even some of them who have had that Trump derangement syndrome, even some of them realized that the Surgeon General was really trying to sound the alarm that forget what Billy Bob is doing. I'm trying trying to talk to you as a black man, and we need to put down some of this alcohol. We need to put down some of this tobacco. We need to put down some of these drugs. We need to put down some of this fried chicken. We need to put down the sodium. And people were all over him as, look at him. He's sitting up in Trump's cooning, and he blaming the victim.
Yeah, so we got.
Well, if the victim, if it's a victimless crime, if you eating all of that shit that you ain't, and if you doing all the drugs that you ain't supposed to be doing, then who are you supposed to blame? And he ain't blaming. He's just saying, and he ain't shaming. He's just saying that these predisposition illnesses, hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease is going to be the reason why we going to have the kind of numbers that we having with how this
also that too, and also you could if you do I don't know how true it is, if you do some studies and research, it also have to do with density. Could associate with that, close.
Density. What was that word?
Density. Like close proximity.
Oh,
So
like I said, man, it was one girl who said that, man. That's why I'm gonna definitely put your name.
Hey, that's cool, but man, hey, you want to have any closing remarks? Hey, Joe.
Some of us live where we on top of each other. Some of us have to get on the subway where we can't do the social distancing and this, that, and the other. I mean, it was one of the better posts that I've had, simply because it made people have a more of a civility to it, where even if you disagreed, it wasn't, oh, well, you a Trump lover, or, it wasn't that kind of bullshit. It was, even though a few of the people came off, like, because the brother was in Trump. Because if that same, and this is how, and I'm going to say this and then I'm going to let you go, and this is how dumb we can be. If Obama had a black surgeon general and came out and said the exact same thing, wouldn't nobody have said a word. I mean, it wouldn't have been none of that. Because Obama did a lot of that condescending shit anyway. He went to a graduation and told people from Morehouse, look, there's too many of us ain't being responsible fathers and all of this shit. And then his wife went and said, yeah, it's too many, at a college graduation, mind you, and said, yeah, it's too many of our black kids want to be rappers and ballers. And nobody said a word about him. Even one of them blaming the victim.
Yes, sir.
I mean, it was crazy, man.
That's cool. Well, as usual, as always, a pleasure with Brother Joe Cee, the political soothsayer Slayer. And remember, as we always know, come to conclude that if the devil disguises himself as an angel of light, and people become attracted to that, and yet it is a disguise. It's like a wolf. You think he's smiling at you, but yet he's growling at you. Other than that,
absolutely. I think I heard that in a similar kind of manner, but it was worded a little different. As always, my brother, it's always a pleasure. I always get wisdom. I always get a better understanding. And to the audience that's hearing this, I'm sorry I got a little emotional and passionate about it, but that's just my personality. So next time I'll be a little more calmer.
Yes, sir. Always good. Just be yourself. That's what's important. Okay, brother. Until next time.
This is good, man. And I'm gonna text you them numbers, man, so you can put another one of these together, man. Because it would be interesting hearing from both of them two ladies.
Yes, sir. All right, brother. Talk to you.
Okay, yeah, be good, man. Be blessed. And thanks for that prayer too, man. I really appreciate that.
All right, thank you. Thanks for sharing. All right.